So what could be a major legal and political turning point for Nigeria's opposition tonight? A court has validated the PDP's Ibadan convention, affirming the leadership of Kabiru Turaki and, at least on paper, settling a long internal power struggle that's threatened to fracture one of Nigeria's biggest political parties. But while the ruling delivers clarity in the courtroom, it raises even deeper questions in the court of public opinion. Does this judgment truly unify the PDP or simply hand victory to one faction while leaving old wounds unhealed? Can a party that spent months battling itself convincingly present an alternative to power? And with 2027 already on the horizon, is this the moment the PDP begins a genuine reset or just another chapter in a cycle of internal crisis? Because beyond the legal triumph lies a harder political test, rebuilding trust, restoring cohesion, and proving relevance in a rapidly shifting political landscape. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the PDP's National Publicity Secretary, Ememobong, who is aligned with the affirmed Turaki leadership. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
This ruling affirms the PDP's Ibadan convention and the Turaki leadership, but what does it mean in practice?
What it means in practice is that it's the latest judgment in the plethora of judgments, and when you analyze the hierarchy of courts, it's still one of the high courts judgments. You know, the others were from the Federal High Court. This is the High Court, and the difference is that this is where an individual went to the court to enforce his fundamental rights to freedom of association, you know, and to belong politically. And this is the case. This case has been on for a while. This case predates the convention. In fact, this is the case upon which the order was made mandating or directing PDP to go on with the election. At that time, INEC was a party to this case. So for like every case, it must have an end. It had its end today. But I must say again, for the purpose of enriching the argument and unpacking the issues that are there, that most of the issues that are in this case are also before the Court of Appeal. Because when you look at the judgments involved, the Motosho J, the Laifu J, the Abdul Malik, all of this, and even the one from the Federal High Court, Ibadan, the kernel of all of this are things that the Court of Appeal is now properly seized, having heard the cases completely and reserved for judgment. So the judgment of the Court of Appeal would elucidate on a lot of this, because they are basically a matter, you know, when we go to court, we go on two bases, either purely facts or facts and law, you know, of law, the interpretation of law alone, or the application of facts to law. So this judgment clearly aligns the law with the fact in existence. The fact that is undeniable that a convention held. The fact that is undeniable that the party is running in terms of the administrative structure, in terms of all the legitimate organs of the party under one person's leadership, the Turaki leader. That's the fact. But now, the law can displace facts. The law can say, well, yes, that is happening in fact, but it's not happening legally. The law can say so. So, but what this judgment does is to align, and justice is served when law aligns with the facts. So for example, we see you to be a fair-skinned person, and
am I?
Yeah,
I always thought I was a black man.
No, so you're in this terrain, you know.
No,
again,
I understand what you mean.
Yeah, so if the law pronounces you red-skinned, I mean, well, it's the law. People won't challenge it, but people say, but that law doesn't look like Charles. Maybe it's another person. Maybe it's another Charles. So, but when the law describes you as you are, then you begin to see joy, like you've seen today. I mean, the reception is humongous, and you see people begin to say, because the law now aligns with the fact.
Right. Well, I mean, it's. I don't even know how you understand what's going on, because it's just so confusing. Case after case. I mean, the public are just sitting there, I mean, wondering what on earth is going on. Because now it sounds like this legal victory today does not automatically translate into political legitimacy, and certainly not acceptance within the PDP.
No, political acceptance and legitimacy has never been an issue. It's never been an issue, because just a few days ago, you saw it in Abuja, despite the issues we have. The issue, the only impediment, the only cog in the wheel of the progress of the PDP is the legal issues, where some of the judgments with respect to the courts were not in tandem with what the facts are. So in terms of political activity, if you go down to, if you check around, you would see that the PDP is alive. Off-cycle elections, even with the crisis in the party, we've had an outing that, yes, the results didn't come out as we expected, but you saw that PDP was still on board. So what that does is that there are people who were in the PDP who clearly have shown, and especially the FCT elections, has clearly shown that there are people who claim to be in the PDP but are not for the PDP. So how do you explain that someone says, no, I'm a member, in fact, I'm not just a member, I'm the leader, and there's nothing like a national leader in the PDP. That thing was in the APC. We don't have that in our constitution. I'm the national leader of PDP, but I can now go and tell a person, a candidate of the PDP, to step down for the candidate of another party. The whole reason why political parties are formed is to mobilize people to win elections, true or false. And the party constitution of PDP says that we shall field candidates in all offices and that we shall take steps to win within the ambit of the law. So anybody who claims to be a member of PDP, who is working against, like the Bible says, you cannot work against the truth, but only for the truth. That person can therefore not be. So the world now knows that there's no hiding the fact that there are people whom the president has said, if your party wins my party, you no longer have a job. And so to keep their job, they have decided to suppress what used to be their party.
Yeah, because you fired him, didn't you?
Yeah, they did. So what used to be their party,
Mm.
and they're clinging on to. So clearly, there's no division within the fair-minded, politically savvy people in the PDP who want the good of the PDP. You go to any part of this country today, you're going to see them. But you also have people who are fair-weathered people who say that, look, we follow the party in power. Yes, we may be in PDP, but since it looks like the party in power is accepting people, we don't want to go there, but we can still be in PDP and support that party. That's not multi-party democracy. That's called anti-party activity, stricto sensu. There's no way else to say that. But now, Charles, but
if technically he's no longer a member of your party, although he doesn't accept that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with him going to somebody who he's now opposing and convincing the person to step down for somebody he's supporting.
No, but that clearly now shows it aligns his intention with his mindset.
Yeah, but that's always been what he's done, even from within the PDP.
No, but he used to say that, look, he wants the best for the party. When he was in PDP, he used to say that. He said, look, every other person is the problem. In all of his interviews, he would mention every other person who is the problem, and he will become a saint. And the question is, why is it that in every political arrangement, you're usually the saint, but you're the agent provocateur, but at the end, you are the one who is able to name and shame other people? So, but clearly, this was a litmus test that leaves no one in doubt as to the real intent of why there's problem in the PDP, which is the desire, which he has also voiced, the desire to ensure that the PDP doesn't have a presidential candidate, or has a presidential candidate whom he can go to 48 hours before the presidential election to say, man, you need to step down for the president, and railroad the president back without a contest. That's the whole essence.
But the fact that he's actually able to do that, well, not do the president because you haven't got to that point yet, but be able to make people step down and at the same time remain fastidious in his claim that he still belongs to the PDP. I mean, that still confuses the public.
No, it shows the broken nature of our society. It shows the broken nature of the value system, that any right-thinking person would refer to such a person as being a member of the PDP. In fact, the people who refer to him as a member of the PDP must have their own heads checked because it speaks to their morality.
Yeah, but you guys are the ones who want your heads checked, because for a very exceedingly long time, he was operating from within the PDP.
Why that was
you only just made the decision to fire him just a few months ago.
In peace and conflict analysis, you must give a cooling time when people are angry. That is why they say you don't beat a child and expect that child not to cry. A gentleman spent a fortune. We saw videos of vehicles. He was ready for a presidential election, but he lost at the primaries. He wanted to be vice president, spent a lot of money and lost. I mean, how do you beat a child and not expect it to cry? So the leadership of the party at that time felt there will be a cooling period. There's a time someone is angry, even within the law. If you slap me, the law permits me to return in equal measure immediately.
Well, let's move on from that, because, I mean, the presidential election will now take place in January 2027. You're still not reconciled to what the PDP really is going to be in that election. can it realistically present a united front if key stakeholders, it may not be necessarily Nyesom Wike, but there are other people within the party who still feel sidelined?
No, you remember that Turaki said from Ibadan that the duty of this rebirth mission was to rebuild, was to reconcile. But there's a caveat. Reconciliation must be to the benefit of PDP. We're not reconciling to kill PDP. We're not asking for the peace of the graveyard. We want peace. But it's not a peace that leads to the demise of the reason why the only reason, yes, Turaki SN is a senior lawyer, but probably in my law practice, I would not have met him. So what has brought Turaki and the rest is PDP. So when we are reconciling, we must reconcile with the PDP at the center of that reconciliation. And I mean, there are people like that. You've seen, we've done a lot of visits to people, some who were just sitting, who were doing sit-down look, who have said, look, okay, you guys are doing well, we're coming back to the party. We're doing reconciliation along those lines. And we have stated clearly, unambiguously, we're sending our presidency back to the South. We've said so for this period. And therefore, you have seen that people, that was a decision that the NEC took in the last administration. And you're seeing people coming out. People are saying, and irrespective of that decision, the party is not also saying that if Charles wants to run and Charles is from Sokoto, that they will stop Charles. No. But this is the mindset of the party. So at that point, with elections coming close, a lot of people are interfacing with us. Things are happening at different levels. Politics is local. Things are happening at different levels. The state chapters are doing their consultative meetings. The local government chapters are doing their consultative meetings. We are not denying the fact that this has been a setback, because there are some people, I mean, we are used to playing within a circle, and you find that 2 or 3 of your players are not there. That's sufficient to dislocate a team. But we also have enough time to replace those people, because that is why in every team, you have a replacement for everyone, including the coach.
Right. Well, I have to admit, it's doing my head in. Although I think you're doing a reasonably good job trying to put it in some kind of perspective. But let me just get your reaction to the fact that in spite of all these challenges, the PDP actually won the chairmanship of one of the local councils in the FCT. Yeah, we could have won more. I mean, how did that make you feel? No. I mean, it's a bitter sweet taste. It's just like taking Campari. At some point, depending on what you took last, if you took water, you find it sweet, then bitter at the end. So sweet, the fact that we have councillors who won by blood and sweat because they fought against everything to win. Bitter because we could have won more. For example, in Kuje, where you saw that in Kuje Central, there was no reason why the results could not be transmitted immediately, except for the fact that we had mentioned, I sat on this program and I mentioned, that if you remove the word real time from electronic transmission, it defeats the purpose, because it means that I can transmit that result 3 hours after and it's still within the ambit of the law. What stops a BVAS machine that was working all through the accreditation process from simply snapping and saying, and I've said that the proviso in sub 3 is superfluous, because you don't know whether there is network until you've pressed send. Haven't pressed send, you can no longer do something to that result. So we could have won more if the elections were free and fair. We could have won more if intimidation was not part of it. We could have won more if people who were previously in our party were not going around confusing people, using the carrot and stick approach, buying off people, intimidating people. We could have won more. A lot of ifs. Yeah, a lot of this. So let's look at your strategy ahead of 2027, because you're now literally talking about months away. It's less than a year away. What is the PDP's immediate roadmap to reposition itself as a serious contender ahead of the 2027 election? Because I'm sure you know that in the minds of many Nigerians, they just can't trust a party that appears to be struggling to manage its own internal democracy.
Which party in Nigeria isn't struggling to manage its own democracy? Is it the ruling party in Oyo State that disqualified even senior advocates and had to force a consensus? Which party?
Well, yours has been a protracted one.
No, which hasn't been protracted. You see, it is where the political system is a microcosm of the larger society. So the issues that are happening in the larger society are happening here. And so you have internal bickering, because we do not have politics with principle, which is why it's possible for people to stand for 2 different things within one election cycle. So what we are doing is to rebirth the party on the path of principle. We are saying that this new party, this party we're having a rebirth now, we must stand for particular things. We must uphold principle. We must take the voices of the people. There are two voices in a political party, Charles. You have the qualitative voices, the governors, the senators, the big people who can speak, who decorate the head table when we have meetings. But you have the quantitative voices, those voices that you may not know their names. Now, the challenge we had was that this party was made by the aggregation of quantitative voices. But those quantitative voices now created qualitative voices. And in the process of administering this party over time, we allowed the qualitative voices to overdrown the quantitative voices to the point where the people felt bad. So what we are doing now is say, yes, you're a governor with us, we hear you. But can we also hear what your people are saying? Yes, you are their representative. But sometimes there's a dissonance between what you hear them say and what an arbiter hears them say. And the governors understand. Yes, you're a senator. This is what you want done. But can we also interface with your people? We have ward chairman. We have a chapter chairman. Can we also listen to them? Whatever they say, we come back to you and say, look.
Right. I understand all that. But we're running out of time. And I asked you about your strategy ahead of 2027. Is there any potential or possibility or any discussion around the possibility of, aligning with other, opposition groups?
That question comes up a lot.
Yeah.
If that will happen.
I mean, the likes of the ADC, a possible alliance.
Of course. You see, the truth is, the entire opposition movement will have to unify at some point. But is that time now? Maybe no. Reason.
When you say now, you mean for 2027?
Is it immediate as in now?
Okay, right.
So that the workability and the intricacies of that understanding is something the leaders must work out. And they're already talking backstage. Now, so what that means is a unified opposition. Even a fragmented opposition is giving the incumbents stress. So unified opposition will be fait accompli. So what is happening is that we must have an individual basis consolidated sufficiently so that when we come together, it becomes a force of nature. It becomes a moving train that anyone who stands in front, of course, knows what the consequence will be. But is that in the immediate? We are working together on different fronts. We are talking. For example, you saw that we issued joint statements, PDP, ADC, and NMPP on the electoral law before it was passed, on the electoral bill before it was passed, and we are still talking on different fronts to smoothen what will become that understanding.
So basically, you need to solidify what is clearly your own internal fragility.
Everyone has to do that
before you start talking about, getting into a broader opposition alliance.
Everyone has to hold, because when you're coming to the table, you're coming with something. Because you're going to be bringing something so that you can take something. That's the nature of politics. So when you're coming, so what all the political parties, the opposition political parties are doing now is to define what they'll be bringing to the table when that discussion comes. Because that discussion must come at some point. Whether it would now work to say, okay, let all of us bring one candidate belongs to that time.
Right. Okay.
That will all of us find a common ground to work together. We already have a common ground in a common adversary. The hunger, the insecurity, the challenges, we have a common ground. But how we work together and become a tapestry that it will be very difficult to be broken is what the leaders will be working out.
Well, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you for coming in and talking to us about this. Ememobong is the PDP's National Publicity Secretary, who is aligned with the affirmed Turaki leadership. Thank you very much indeed.